Awesome. Welcome everyone to the first Communities of Practice session on the power of parents. My name is Priyanka and I'm your facilitator for today. Um, Before we jump into the session, I will start off with a quick introduction about GSF for those of you who are new here. The Global Schools Forum is a collaborative community and innovation accelerator and a partnership builder for non-state organizations working to improve education at scale for underserved children in low and middle income countries. The network currently consists of 165 organizations that are working across 63 countries, serving 126 million children through 1.3 million schools approximately. About this learning series itself, with support from the MC2H Foundation, we're launching this 4-part community of practice on the power of parents. What we really want to do through this communities of practice is to really reimagine parents as equal partners, especially when we're talking about children's learning in early and primary years. Like I said, this is a 4-part learning series, which is starting today, and it's going to go up to June 10th. Every week, we're going to look at one theme that we're going to focus on. Today's focus is on building parental confidence. The session that's going to happen next is going to focus on building community-led parenting models and peer-led networks for literacy development. In the third session, we are going to move a little bit away from home-based and community-based support, but we're also going to think about parent, community, classroom, and school-level partnerships. And in the last session, we're going to talk about how to engage fathers meaningfully in parental programs. If you want to get some more context of how sort of this learning series came together and what's the thought process behind this, last month we had done a webinar where we unpacked some of the deficit narratives around parenting programs today. And we really made a case for why it's important to move towards a strength-based approach and build on the assets that parents already sort of bring to the table. In case you missed that launch webinar, here's a QR code link of that. If whenever you have time, we'd highly recommend you to watch it to just gather more context about the learning series. My colleague Ajay is also going to post the YouTube link of the recording in chat right now. Feel free to bookmark it and keep. And again, would really recommend all of you to watch it. Before we jump into the session today, I just want to take a couple of minutes to really talk about this communities of practice and what we're hoping to achieve with this sort of long term as well. So we have 5 objectives and outcomes that we have in mind. One is to improve awareness of strategies that can help engage and empower parents in supporting literacy development of children, especially in early and primary years. You may already be implementing some of those strategies within your parenting program. In that case, we'll use this community of practice to tap in and strengthen the strategies further. In case you're not, this will just be a space for you to learn more about it. Second objective is around just increasing readiness for development and adaptation of locally relevant strategies by leveraging the insights that are shared through these communities of practice. We're going to be bringing exciting innovations to you, but there are also going to be a lot of spaces for you to discuss these strategies with your peers, brainstorm with them, get feedback to really adapt and contextualize it to what works in your setting. So that's the second objective that we have in mind. The third one is really to create a space where all practitioners who truly deeply care about this topic can just come together and talk about it, share experiences, and support each other through collaboration. The fourth objective is to really build a shared perspective, rather a practitioner perspective on what we think as a community on the power of parents, what challenges do we face, and where do we need support. And this is really to inform any kind of support that we may need as a community for future programming, for advocacy, or investment in this area. And lastly, through these conversations that we're going to be having over the next 4 sessions, we will be documenting all of your insights into reflective blogs or as knowledge pieces. And we really want to create some ground up practitioner perspective that we can share across the sector that can benefit people who are already working in the sector, but can also support those who are keen to enter this space. But from there, coming to the session today, today's session is specifically going to focus on parental confidence. We have a threefold objective for the session today. One is that we know parental confidence, or the lack of it can create major impact. So the first objective that we have for the session today is really to unpack factors that shape parental confidence, especially when we are thinking about supporting children's literacy development in early and primary years. Second, we are going to think about how to view literacy in itself. Traditionally, we view literacy as to be able to read books or to write, but literacy is so much more than that. It's about communication, it's about problem solving, it's about navigating the world, it's about everyday challenges and practices, which can be built through simple activities like storytelling, through conversation, through play, which many of the parents in our programs must already be doing. So the objective here is to recognize it and to reframe our understanding of literacy and to strengthen it further. And the third objective really is to learn about practical strategies that can help shape parental confidence and help them step into their role as literacy champions more easily and confidently. Before we jump into the session, a couple of housekeeping points. One, the session is being recorded, so we will share the link to this recording with you afterwards, in case you'd like to revisit any parts of the discussion today. We will also have a dedicated space for Q&A with the speakers, but that's going to happen a little bit towards the end, but you don't have to wait for that long. Please feel free to use the chat feature anytime to share your thoughts, reflections, or questions. If your question is really pressing, feel free to use the raise hand feature in Zoom if you'd like to ask your question live. We also invite you to turn on your camera if that's possible, if your internet allows for it, and if you feel comfortable. It's just really nice to have sort of faces to your name. We'll also be using Mentimeter for quick polls and reflections, so it'll be great if you can have your phone or a browser tab ready. We're going to have 2 breakout group discussions today. We encourage you to join these breakout group discussions and participate and make the most of it. And in the end of the session, we're going to launch a short poll. This is really just feedback for us to continue to improve these sessions. We hope you're able to stay till the end and take the poll to give us feedback on the session today. So with all of that, coming to the agenda today, we're going to start off with an introduction, which we're doing right now. Post this, I'm going to pass it on to Portia Derry. She's a doctoral researcher from the Open University who's done work on the power of parents research. She's going to be sharing key learnings and findings and practical strategies that they gathered insights on through that research. After that, we're going to get into the first breakout group discussion, where we're going to think about challenges and sort of deficit narratives and what really impacts parental confidence within our own context. We're then going to go into the second presentation, where we're going to have Vidad Saibu, who's the director of School for Life Ghana, to share about their exciting parental engagement initiative. After that, we're going to go into the second breakout group discussion, which is really going to be about solutions and ways to think about the barriers that we addressed and raised in the first breakout group discussion. Then we're going to have open time for Q&A with speakers, and we're going to come and do some quick reflections and close out with next steps. Awesome. So on that note, we're going to start off with a quick exercise, which we're going to do over Mentimeter. So if you can open that, I'm going to give some instructions on how you can access Menti. So there are 3 ways to do it. One, you can scan the QR code directly from your phone. Second is that you can go to menti.com and use the code which my colleague will just paste on the chat. Or the third is to use that web link again, which we're going to post in the chat so you can access that more easily. I'm just going to give everyone like 30 seconds to get the tech ready, and I'm then going to jump into the poll. Okay, I think there was some other question that was open, but let me know if you can see this particular question. This is really for us to get to know kind of who's in the room, just for us to have a sense of who's joining us today. Amazing. So we have lots of local, national NGOs. We have a couple of international NGOs. We have a few independent consultants, advisors, and a couple of people from research institutions. Awesome. I'm going to move forward. Oh, I see everyone's already given their response here. So the question was, in case you haven't, what does literacy mean to you for young children? So as an example, you can give it in either one word or a phrase. I'm just going to maybe wait like 10 seconds since a lot of people have already answered this. So we see reading and writing right in the middle. We see communication. We see understanding text, effective communication, confidence, fun, agency, able to communicate. Amazing. So while literacy is about reading and writing as one of the goals, but it's also about a lot of other things like communication and just a lot effective communication, finding joy in learning, just making sense of the world, etc. And that view of literacy is really important for us to have, and we're going to talk more on that in the session today. I'm going to move us to our last question, which is, can you name an activity that helps young children build literacy skills? So this is bringing the question a little bit more closer to home. So think about what you said literacy means to you, and what are some of the activities that you think can help build literacy skills in children? For example, asking questions. There's reading stories. I see something on reading with parents. There's something on community support, which we're going to look more into in the next session. Naming things, playing, discussion, storytelling. And a lot of these activities are activities that parents can do. They have the capacity to do it. Oftentimes, what they lack is the confidence, which we're going to learn a little bit more about and discuss more about in the session today. So on that note, I am going to hand it over to Portia to take us through some of the learnings that they had through the Power of Parents research, and talk about some of the barriers that you learned about, some of the learnings that you had, and some of the practical strategies that our community can take forward and think more about embedding into their programs. So over to you, Portia.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Portia there. I'm from the Open University, and I'm very happy to be here. So this would be from the research that was done, which was funded by MC2H. So it's a very big report, and then at the end of it, there'll be like a link for you if you want to read it up as well. So these are just major insights and major themes that came up from the report that we thought was really very useful, and I'm happy to share it with you. So first of all, we'll go to the next slides. When we talk of barriers to parental self-perception and confidence, what are the things that are kind of like blocking parents from, they already know they can do something to improve the literacy skills, but why still the low confidence or the perception that they don't have confidence? What we saw was that across board, most parents felt that, especially if they had low literacy skills, and English, and bear in mind English, in Ghana, for instance, where I come from, is the main dominant language. It's a language of instruction in schools. It's like the official where you go to offices. So often parents feel that, well, if English is the main language of instructions in schools and we don't know it, we cannot read and write it, then there must be something wrong with us. I mean, what can we offer? So that's often is a huge confidence deflator in the sense that parents are thinking they don't have anything to offer. They are not recognizing that, if I speak the Gbanli or the Gari or Chida, some of the local dialects in Ghana, that in itself is something. So this whole idea of English as the major language of instruction comes under the fact that we view literacy to be purely reading and writing in English. So once you cannot read and write in English, then that is it. So that leads to the lack of confidence for parents. Another thing that we saw was, of course, that ran through was, the social economic status. When you looked at parents who had gone to school, were having a formal job in sort of a formal, traditional, you say elite kind of jobs, they felt more confident to kind of like take control of their children's literacy game. But whereas parents who were like below, middle sort of even below that, they felt that, if I really don't have anything to offer, because they view literacy to be, having some sort of monetary value or money to be able to buy some sort of things, when they think of literacy, is buying these expensive books, things that would actually help improve the literacy skills. So that in itself is a barrier, which is would think very deeply about it. It's a valid reason. If a parent feel I'm not earning much, I'm just a peasant farmer, do I actually have anything to offer? Another thing that we felt that undermined their confidence was the fact that there's that perception out there that the teacher knows it all. After all, think of it, the teacher is a professional. The teacher has gone to training college, the teacher has been taught, equipped to teach children. And so there's that strong perception that, well, I'm not a teacher, so how can I help my child? And this comes in both ways. On one hand, the way the teachers sometimes treat, we saw in some studies, when they interviewed the parents and teachers, teachers had a perception that, well, if a parent is not literate, the parent has nothing to offer. So this deterred the parents from even offering anything if they can. And they shy away, because if we go for meetings, if a teacher is having that perception of me, I'm not going to have the confidence. So it comes both ways. What the establishment think of the parents not, thinking that the teacher has it all, and then the parent themselves thinking that, okay, I think the teacher knows it all. Another thing too that we felt was that, parents themselves overall felt that they were not, based on all these other indications, they just did not have the confidence to kind of like take control of their literacy gains or the development of their children. So in that sense, they just folded their hands. In some of the clinics that I ran in Ghana, they just said, we don't just know. They didn't want to probe further. We don't just know. They didn't want to say, oh, we have this. It's just like, we don't know. And that's a full stop. So yeah, these are some of the things, and then we can really reflect on this. Are these really real in the situations in which we work on, or these are just from what the data or the empirical evidence that we look at? So just let's ponder for a moment and see whether it happened. So we felt, looking at the social economic status, the low literacy skills, teacher knowing not it all from both the teacher perspective and the students, and seeing how all these interact. Imagine all these interact and, sort of rope in with everyone. It can really be very daunting for the parents as well. Yeah. So going forward, when we look at some of the key evidence that we saw, there was this literacy projects that we saw. That was the Ken Siginsa community project, and it was really fascinating. It was where it was done in South Africa. First, it was funded by an NGO, and then it transformed to something. When the NGO left, the women themselves took it over. So this brought together rural women who had children. So these children were kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4 years old. They came together in an informal setting, and then they would share stories, share their challenges, and share just ideas how to help their children read and write. So these were very really in the low basic informal stuff, not really huge like sharing, reading an English book with them, all the technical things that you think elite parents would do. So these were just very basic things. And what is interesting about this project was that it was so sustainable even after the NGO left. The women themselves contributed money and resources, and they continued to meet despite when the NGO ended. So this is a clear example that when we do, the little things that are sustainable, that doesn't need so much huge capital. After we finish our work, then the communities themselves can take it up as well, because the women still meet, and then they bring their children to the place too as well, and they have all these decorative things just to entice the children to be joyful in their learning and stuff as well. Another one too was the Libera project, which was that one sort of leveraging on parents' knowledge and cultural capital. So first of all, recognizing that parents themselves had something to offer. So not the deficit view that, oh, they had nothing to offer. So this kind of like, if a mother grew up, the mother's grandmother, great grandmother taught her some songs, some games and stuff like that. These were like cultural capital that often we don't realize that help the children. And some of these games can be counting, can be repetition of words that can really help. So this one also helped in the sense that, and then later I can share the links to all these projects so that we can also read about them as well. In a sense that they took what the parents had and worked with it. And I felt that was really important. Not just going to a community and saying that, okay, you don't have anything. I'm bringing you something new. They may not be familiar with that and it will be hard to accept. But first of all, finding out what the parents had and then working with that and seeing whether that can work. And I recently went to one of Luminous classrooms, and I think they are here too as well, where in some of the settings, the children were using like sticks and counters to aid in the adding and subtraction. And that was the way working with what they had. They could pick the sticks from the environment and the counters and bottle lids and stuff and be able to play with them. So it's an example of working with that. Also, we also saw that community-led initiative, which sought to put power in the hands of parents or caregivers with low literacy skills through leadership roles help. An example was, in that report, so there was a World Bank project that with partnership with Lively Minds, and what they realized was that, creating that circle where you put women in charge, women with leadership roles within the community, where like sort of they were in charge of mobilizing, of designing the games and activities, sort of gave them that importance, also boost their confidence. Then they realize, oh, actually we have something to offer and we can do this. And by that example, other women in the communities or other caregivers then are empowered to say, okay, if she can do it, I can also give. So the suggestion was like having these mothers literacy circles where people could just come together, share, and then putting them in that critical role. Because the truth is that in our society, whereby women are often at the bottom, and imagine women that are not literate and cannot read and write. Yeah, I think we can go to the next slide too as well. So when we look at practical research-backed approaches that have successfully shifted parental confidence, what we sharply notice, I'll start from the bottom, joyful play. Often we do not think that learning should be anything joyful. When you look at the literature, it's like if children are playing, are they really learning? But we saw that, engaging children in play schemes using locally available materials, like I mentioned, the counters, the sticks to count, and all that. These were things that were not costly and that were not barriers. So locally available play activities and materials, foster, the most important word for me is the inclusive learning environment. Because once you introduce anything foreign or anything they have to go to a shop to buy, then money becomes an issue. But then when we are talking of joyful play, people think of all the huge things, a beautiful painted center, but it could also be materials within the environment. So that is something really practical. Another thing too is language. Language is very important, and you see, it's changing now, but it's not changing so fast, where we often feel that the child's first language doesn't matter. And there's that fixation of just making sure that you excel, read and write in English, and that's it. Because obviously, the major exams is said in English. But research is now proven, and many evidence is showing that once the child first language is in a particular language, the mother tongue, and we tap into that, that is very useful for the child. So embracing that, and it even makes it more beautiful in the sense that parents then feel comfortable, because if I can't speak English and I can't read English, then as much as possible, and I have my mother tongue, which I'm comfortable with, I can interact with my child. And these days, there are lots of books which are translated into the mother tongue. So it's easy for the mother and child or the father and child to be able to, share stories and that kind of things. And here it plays a role in storytelling, traditional song. These are things that easily mothers or the caregivers can share comfortably in the home or in the circle. Another thing is rapport and support. We saw that it's very important for teacher and parent communication. And in one of the examples, we saw that when we brought parents and teachers together, then teachers suddenly, oh, we didn't know that, parents had so much to offer. And parents who said, oh, we didn't know that we also had so much to offer. So there's that mistrust goes away because there's active, interactive communication, which is beautiful. So activities like encouragement, reinforcement, saying, oh, the song you taught your child is good, is this and that, just so to boost the confidence of the child really helps. So, and most importantly, capacity building for parents and caregivers. When you bring different parents together, caregivers together, then they begin to exchange ideas and share what they are doing and what they are not doing. So that is really very useful. So again, rapport and support for the parents or caregivers. And I don't always want to emphasize on mothers alone, because fathers too equally, have a huge role to play. The language again is very important. Then joyful play. In all it, we shouldn't lose the fact that children have to enjoy what they are doing. And once they enjoy, then the mothers can also, it becomes like a family bonding together, rather than something that they have to take off and do. Then the mother becomes, the confidence, she becomes maybe too a bit apprehensive, being afraid, okay, but if it's joyful, the storytelling bits, the oral stuff, the games and stuff, something that they're already familiar with, it's much easier to navigate that you are sharing what you know, not something which is foreign. Yeah. Um, Next slide. I think that's it. So yeah, and this is the link. Thank you very much. This is the link that you can easily, I'm sure I'll put it in the chat too as well, or you can scan. And this is the research team as well. So that report is really useful because we did sort of like we went travel to Nigeria and Ghana too as well, and thought some of the work that some NGOs were doing, innovations in the field, and it was really very mind-blowing. It's a field of work that is growing, and there's a lot of potential because the impact is really very useful. And we must know that we in the past we focused so much on, the literacy being English and forgetting about the parents part. So it's now time to really put the lens on what the parents can do, really. And that has shown to be hugely very successful as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Portia. We gave you the hard task of summarizing your entire research in like 3 slides. But thank you so much for doing that and presenting all your learnings so succinctly. But also, just this was a very insightful discussion. I think there's a lot to unpack in
Yeah,
your
a lot. And
presentation.
I've seen that Robert just kept, does poor attitude qualified? Indeed, I think so it does. Poor attitude. Sometimes, we've had workshops with parents whereby the attitude too is another thing. So it's about changing attitudes too as well. Yeah. So I do agree with you, Robert. Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, that's one.
Um, What we're going to do now is get into a breakout group discussion, and we're going to unpack the first half of this conversation that Portia led us through, which was largely around the narratives that either parents are building for themselves or the institutions around are reinforcing for them. We're going to do this in breakout groups of 4 to 5 people for about 12 minutes or so. My colleague is going to shortly put us into breakout groups, but just to give everybody a sense of the questions that we're going to be discussing. So there are 2 questions. One is around, we're going to think about a parent in your program and going to think about experiences, comments, or social norms that might be holding them back from seeing themselves as a literacy champion. And then we're going to try and categorize them into barriers. So we've given some starting points. So either these are internal beliefs or external perceptions or structural factors or cultural narratives. But if you find more categories in your discussion, feel free to add to that. We're going to provide you a note-taking template as well, which I'll do shortly in the chat before we send you off to the breakout group. Just make sure that you are adding all of your discussion points within the template. We may not have time to hear from all the groups. So if you have all of your learnings discussion points added there, that will just give everyone a good sense of what all of you discussed. But we'll have some time for 1 or 2 groups to come and share in the larger group. In case you want to do that, would request you to assign one volunteer who can speak and share key discussion points from your group. I'm just going to share the note-taking template with all of you. If you can give me a thumbs up, if you can access it, that would be super helpful. I'm just doing it right now. I just shared the link in the chat. Are you able to access that link? Okay, I see a couple of people there, so I think it's working. We only have to fill the first table, and the second table will come to in the second discussion group. So Ajay, can I request you to please put us all in breakout groups for about 12 minutes?
Ending now.
Thank you. For everyone who's in the main room, let us know if you're having any trouble getting in. You should be seeing invite from a particular Zoom room. Mimi, are you having any trouble?
All should be assigned.
The risk with that is that we may not in the near future see a shift in the women's commitment in terms of household chores. So if we are limiting to saying that let's use the fact that this is a CAF gender role and build on their confidence, they may not in the end not have the time to necessarily invest in the development of their children. Whereas the men, their work is structured around a particularly seasonal, and as a result of that, they have more time. So engaging both genders in this process would be, for me, would be a better win than just concentrating in a particular gender because the environment is set up that way.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. Sorry, everyone. Sorry. Hello, everyone. Hello, group. We're back.
Hi, no, thank you for getting us.
Everyone. Okay.
No, thank you for getting us started. I was actually going to ask if anyone would like to discuss what was shared in your small breakout group discussion. So thank you for just getting us started. I think the point that you were talking around sort of gender roles is something that we also discussed in our group. So resonate with that. And we had people from Ghana, Uganda, and from India. So even across context, I think that kind of made sense to a lot of us. But if anyone else would like to share what was discussed in their group, and if you can see responses of other people, if you see any interesting like trend or pattern that you'd like to highlight to the larger group. We have time for 1 or 2 people to share. So yeah, over to all of you.
Okay, then I think I'll get it started with room 9. So I think for our group, a lot of discussions came around. We talked of lack of awareness of some parents not being aware of their roles as literacy champions. Some people shared their experiences as home visits, talking to parents about how they can help their kids when they come home after school. And the parents sort of, I've never been to school before. How do you expect me to be able to do ABC? So these are some of the things we discussed. And another area we also discussed is the fact of nonchalant attitude of these parents. For instance, some students being truants, and then teachers going the extra mile to do home visits to ensure that the parents are taking ownership or being part of their child's education. And these parents sort of, okay, you as the teacher, talk to the child to see if you'll be able to convince the child to have the love for learning or have the love for coming to school. So here we summarize it as the teacher being seen as the reservoir for all knowledge, and whatever the teacher is saying is final and all that. So in summary, these are some of the things we discussed. Let's give opportunity for other groups to also come in.
Thank you for getting us started. For anyone else who resonates or maybe has a different point to share.
Yeah, hello, this is Daniel from Ghana, Africa. I think our room 10, we were looking at, we discussed about the level of education of some parents that makes them feel like they don't have the capacity to be able to lead the child in literacy, because their excuses are that I did not go to school or I completed school too early. And so they feel like they are not able to read and write themselves, and that's why they are not leading in that process. Secondly, it's about some of them feel embarrassed because there's also a pointer from the school side where some teachers feel that this is their space, like someone was saying, that they have been trained. And what is a mother coming to do in my space? Even if you look at the PTSMC structure, where parents are supposed to monitor schools, parents don't do it because they feel like, if I even monitor a school and I enter the classroom, how would I know what the teacher is doing is right or wrong? So, and they are even afraid to come to this classroom and embarrass themselves in front of their children. So this is just, and then also we're looking at the gender, natural gender setup of the woman, where the woman is naturally to be ensured that the home is well kept, there's enough food in the house, and fathers are the ones to work. And so the women naturally don't have that, even.
We lost you, Daniel.
Okay.
Oh, you're
So
back.
I think, oh, I went off. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just for about like the last 20
Okay.
seconds or so.
All right. So women naturally don't see themselves as people to start literacy at home, but that is that of the teacher, because their role is more of cooking and ensuring that there's enough food at home. And so this is it. But I think one gap that maybe we did not conclude is about, there is too much focus on the father as the one responsible for the responsibility of the child outside the home. And so maybe if there's one of the things in terms of messaging, we should not just focus on the mothers, or we are likely to be saying, because mothers, they have the language and they will be the ones. And most programmings are now around women. But we should also look at the father. I think somebody was saying that father will also have a responsibility at home. We will have father champions of reading. And so we could also ensure that fathers are also part of programming when we are designing, and not just focus only on the mother, because the father will always be in the house. And there are some homes who don't also have mothers. So what happens to that child? So thank you very much.
Thanks, Daniel. I think the piece around fathers, very important. We're going to learn and talk more about that in session 4. It's a little bit far out in June 10th, but I'm sure it's going to come up in all the other discussions that we have today. So thank you for raising it for the group. Sorry, we cannot hear from everyone. I would have loved to, but I see there are a lot of notes that we can refer back to. I see some people are still typing. Feel free to continue to use this as thoughts are coming in. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to get us to go a little bit forward. I'm going to hand it over now to Vidad Saibu, who is the director for Schools for Life Ghana, and she's going to talk about an exciting parental engagement initiative that they've been running, and what are some of the key learnings that they've been deriving from that program. So over to you, Vidad. Let me know if you'd like me to share, or if you're sharing your screen.
So I'll try to share my screen. Okay. Good afternoon. And thank you for having me as part of this great discussion on power of parents and promoting literacy development of children. I hope you can see my screen. Okay,
Yes, we can.
great.
Yeah.
We can.
So yes, I'll be presenting on our experiences so far in facilitating parental engagement processes as part of the learning journeys of kids. And so my presentation would be very brief. I would give some brief highlights about School for Life. I would also touch a bit on causes of parental self-doubt, and considering the fact that Portia has already done justice to this, I may not be belaboring the points already made there. Then also we'll zero in on our parental engagement initiative, and highlight some key learnings for our discussions. So about School for Life, the organization is a Ghanaian-led, Ghanaian-owned organization that was established in 1994. So it's about 30 years now. And with our flagship program, the complementary basic education program that is targeting the out-of-school children. And we basically work to improve access to relevant quality education by demonstrating and also facilitating innovative and inclusive approaches to education. And currently we are working around four key thematic areas: promoting access to quality basic education, supporting accountability and system strengthening the basic education sector, enhancing access to alternative pathways and lifelong learning, and then promoting community-driven approaches for an interactive schooling. And basically, all of these feed into our vision of Ghana, where the relevant access to quality basic education is ensured by leaving no one behind. And today's discussion largely intersects with three of the thematic areas that we currently work around, which is promoting access to quality basic education, enhancing access to alternative pathways and lifelong learning, and promoting community-driven approaches for an interactive schooling. Specifically, like at the heart of today's discussion is actually the fourth thematic area, which is promoting community-driven approaches for uninterrupted schooling. And basically, maybe just to paint a little bit of a context, in Ghana currently, we still have our population of children to up to about 1.2 million who are still out of school. So what that means is that if we were to enhance their access to basic education, to basic literacy, the parent will be at the heart of everything that would happen to these children. And through our complementary basic education program, parents are actually, and communities by extension, are at the forefront in driving the processes of the learning activities of children who have been neglected and have been largely left out of the mainstream system. But also, for those who are also in school, statistics suggest that about 9 in 10 children are unable to read and write and comprehend by age 10 in sub-Saharan Africa, of which Ghana is also part. So it is within this context that we carry out programs that seeks to change this situation, this status quo. And basically, what we do, as I've already indicated, is working around this four thematic area. And in terms of the issues of why parents currently are at the center of the work we do, we have come to realize that, yes, even though parents have enormous capacity, they have huge resources and they are a huge asset base to enhance literacy development. They have been neglected for far too long, but based on narratives that seeks to disempower them, based on the way we have framed literacy, and that in itself has sort of presented a situation where parents themselves see themselves as undervalued or as not being capable of supporting the literacy development of their children. And Portia has already highlighted a number of them, and I do not want to belabor some of them. She has already indicated that parents see themselves as not being able to support because of their own understanding of literacy to mean being able to read and write in the English language. and for which reason they feel that they do not have anything to offer children literacy support. I mean, the experiences is the same in the areas where we work. But then also, we have also noted that there's that overemphasis on the school-based learning, where we think that everything good about literacy can only happen within the confines of the school environment. With this belief or notion, parents think that, I mean, so it's like it sort of undermines anything else that happens at the home level. And it also presents parents as not being having the ability or what it takes to support their children. We'll come to what we are doing to diffuse these narratives. Then also, there's also this factor of socio-economic demands on parents versus what they can offer, the time that they can offer to support their children. Because the learning processes and specifically literacy development is perceived as something happening like within a particular context, and also you need to dedicate some specific time for it. As a result of this, parents feel that they do not have the time to, as it were, to support their learning activities of children, because they will have to be engaged in other economic activities. The majority of the of communities that we work with are farmers, and they feel that most of them will go to farm from morning till evening, and this leaves them with limited time to support. But if we were to construct the learning or literacy processes or literacy activities as part of the everyday processes, then this can, as it were, change the way parents view their time and how they can actually position themselves to be able to support, regardless of the kind of economic or social activities they are engaged in. So in terms of what basically we do to, as it were, engender parental involvement and also enhance parents' own positive perception and communities, or by extension, the largest stakeholders' perception about parental support for children's learning activities. As an organization, as part of our community-driven approaches to engendering literacy or uninterrupted learning processes, we are implementing what we call the Parental Learning Circle Initiative. And basically, it seeks to mobilize parents who have children both in school, like the mainstream school, and those who are part of our Out of School Children program, that is the complementary basic education program, where we facilitate their coming together to form self-help group to, as it were, discuss and reflect on how they can basically support the routine activities of their children. And this is a mixed gender group where they meet on bi-weekly basis to reflect, ask simple questions, and also challenge themselves as to what can be done to support the learning activities of their children. For like in a typical learning circle meeting or session, parents can table a challenge that they are battling with in terms of how they can support their children, and their other participants will share what they are doing with similar challenges to deal with these issues. So it's basically a self-help where we have volunteers who facilitate this discussion, but it is largely driven by the parental, the groups themselves. Basically, what it does is that it seeks to encourage everyone, regardless of their educational status, to be involved more and be more interested in the learning activities. It also seeks to inspire parents to come out with their own innovations and also leverage on their own community resources to support the learning activities of their children. It also seeks to enhance or create a platform where the parents begin to understand and appreciate the fact that learning is not just what happens in the classroom alone, but also what happens in the everyday activities of the household, in the community. I mean, the interactions, the daily interactions that happens between children to children, parents to a learner, and what have you. So basically that is that. And then also, we are also creating awareness about their own influence, what they can do as parents, as the first caregivers and first communicators of their children, the enormous influence they have in, as it were, unlocking the potentials of children in communication, in literacy, and what have you. It also seeks to, we are also facilitating teacher-parents interactions, where we encourage teachers on the one hand to take interest in visiting the homes of children, and then also parents on the other hand to take interest in visiting the classroom where children are learning, so as to just appreciate the various conditions under which children are learning, and to better prepare themselves to support one another. I mean, teacher supporting parents, and parents also, as it were, appreciating what teachers do in the classroom, basically. And these kind of interactions would eventually converge at helping the child to actually enhance their literacy processes. And also, and this now brings me to the key learnings and recommendations. And I just want to make a point that, yes, it is important for us to recognize the fact that parents really have enormous capacity to influence the learning activities of their children. But we just have to create the right platforms and the right conversations and communication to move from the current narrative of, or the current construction of literacy as being able to read and write, particularly in the English language, to a construction of literacy that is framed as an everyday activities where that involve communication, that involve just simple asking questions, that involves play, and that also involves storytelling. If this is actually understood, parents themselves will see them, parents will see themselves as being able to do these things because they are already doing that. But they see what they are already doing as distinct, as different from what is literacy in the technical sense of it. They see whatever is happening as basically not related to the education of their children and only view school. And it's because of the way we construct literacy. So basically our recommendation is that we need to begin to, as it were, move away from the current deficit narrative of parents as not having anything to support when it comes to learning, but actually viewing literacy as an everyday activity. And when we do that, then we will we will come to the realization that parents really have so much to offer in that direction. Then also our parental learning circle is proven to be a huge potential as a platform that promote self-help learning and sharing of ideas to support the learning activities of children, and actually also engendering community-wide interest in the learning activities of children. And then also, we are also learning that by viewing parents are having so much to offer, it also sort of unlocking the potentials or the recognition of the huge resources inherent in the communities, which could be leveraged to support the learning activities of children, both at home and at the school level. Then also, we note that every parent is interested in the learning activities of their children, both those from low-income households and those who are not really formally educated, but they just need the support. They just need an enabling processes that will see them as having so much to offer, that also recognizes their potential and recognizes the huge resources they have and the huge influence they have on the learning activities of the children. When this recognition is established, it sort of also inherently spark the interest of children, of parents, to support more. And then we are also recommending through our learning the need to, as it were, engender processes that ensure flexibility and also recognize the need for continuous iteration and then also co-creation among the parents. The idea is, like, if we see this process as a learning process where every day is an opportunity to learn and iterate on in terms of the programs that we implement with parents, then it would go a long way to, as it were, enhance and promote parents' ability to continuously innovate, to continuously provide what we call ideas and suggestions as to how they themselves can continuously provide or contribute to the learning processes of their children. And just to conclude by also highlighting that among the other things that we do is to, with all of these that we do, we are actually trying to promote the indigenous pedagogy by contextualizing learning using our complementary basic education program. So in each community that we go in, it is about how we facilitate processes where communities themselves, the ideas are self-generated from the communities, and we use that as basis to, as it were, develop processes and discussion or pedagogies that are in tune with the context of the community. And then also, we are also supporting what we call an intergenerational learning in the communities by engendering the parent-learner engagement processes. We also cultivating a sense of community pride by just establishing and recognizing that communities have a lot of resources and assets to provide that in itself promote or engender a sense of community pride. And when communities begin to be proud of what they can offer in these programs that we implement, then it also, as it were, increases their enthusiasm to support the processes. And we also facilitate the learning processes that equip both the learner and the parents, as well as teachers with the necessary skills to, as it were, turn the community, resources into productive use. So basically, this is about what we do as an organization with regards to our community-driven approaches, and especially with, focusing on parental engagement in the learning processes of children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vedad. I'm going to switch up the order a little bit. We had time for Q&A afterwards, but there are a couple of questions. One is specifically for you, Vedad, by Harriet. She's asking if there are any open source resources or guides that small organizations can adapt to their context to facilitate the parental learning circles. Is there any material
Okay,
that
yes.
you
So
can
we
share?
have materials that we can share, but we do not have any specific links. We are yet developing those links that we can put open links that will be accessible. But in terms of materials, guys, to share, we have that, and we can readily share it to those who are interested in this.
Awesome. I think there was another question that Portia has responded partially on chat, but this is around if parents they don't have any time to support their children, how do you then suggest or recommend that they involve themselves in literacy development of children, especially if they don't have time? Portia, even if you'd like to come off mute and share anything on that.
Yeah. So basically, like I maybe hinted earlier, it has to do with the way they understand literacy. If they understand literacy as an everyday thing, as what happens even the very moment that a child, we wake up from our bed, starting with even brushing of our teeth and saying the daily prayers. All of these are communication, and by extension are literacy. If parents begin to understand that the daily routine communication, the questions we ask children, the way we go about it, the plays the play we engage, the exercises, the games we engage children in are all part of literacy, then there will be no excuse of time limitation, because they will begin to understand that even on the farm, by like the planting we do, the weeding we do are all part of literacy. It is about how we engage the children to understand these activities and how these activities connect with their learning processes and their literacy development. And once that is done, then we are seeing literacy as being embedded in the daily processes, everyday activities of children, of parents, and within the household. When that understanding is established, then there will be limited excuse or no excuse at all regarding time limitation. So basically, that is about it. Like if a mother engaging with a child, like training the child on how to even set fire to prepare food, if we link that, or if we let the mother understand that the processes by engaging the child to understand this, and eventually be able to do it all by themselves are all part of literacy, then they will begin to appreciate how valuable their own the trainings that they impart to children are actually also contributing to the literacy development. If we begin to let them understand that by just simply asking them questions, for instance, when they even return from classes, from formal school, you ask them, what have you learned? Even without understanding what they would tell you, it shows some kind of interest you have in their children. Children will be motivated by that, because they may not necessarily understand or know that what they are telling you, you don't even understand that. They would think that, oh, my mother or my father is very interested in what I learned. So tomorrow when they go back to school, they will be very interested in learning, so as to come back and actually also, as it were, make the mother or the father proud. So basically, it's about asking questions, storytelling, engaging in discussions, in anything, from when we wake up to when we go back to retire to bed again, and everything in between is part of literacy. It is just about how we frame it and how we let parents understand, whether literate or not, how they contribute in these processes.
Yeah, I totally agree with Weda. That's just very beautiful. And you know, in our session, Juliet from Book Dash mentioned the word global framing of education has made parents to think that they don't have the agency. And you know, you put that very beautifully. It's the way we see what literacy is. Is it just in the classroom? Or actually, as Tara said, it can happen anywhere, you know, in the kitchen, in the farm, and all that kind of thing. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Portia. Thanks, Vidar. Any other questions? You can pop them into the chat or just come off mute as well and ask your question yourself. Nazia, yes.
That when in a parents group, if you get mixed group of parents, like, you know, the parents who don't have any literacy background or single ABC, never have been to school, and there are parents who have probably have little bit of literacy, introduction to literacy. So how do you navigate such a mixed group, you know, in your circle, if you get that sort of scenario or group?
Okay, thank you very much. Is it Nazia? Basically, for us, we view every parent as whether literate or not, whether educated, whether high income earning parent or low, we view them as equal, more or less. And when they come to these learning circles, we think that everybody, regardless of their situation and condition, have something to offer. And if you are educated, you are providing, that is your asset, right? Somebody who is not also educated has some others to offer in this later. Because if we look at it as an everyday thing, then it means that everybody has something to offer. It is only when we limit it, and that is what we are actually trying to drive away from. When we limit education or literacy to being able to read and write, that is when we will see a parent who is educated as having an upper hand, excuse me to say, than a parent who isn't. But if we view this as an everyday processes, then you will see that maybe amongst the parents, among the group, you have a parent who has never even sat or stepped his or her foot in the classroom, but is very good in articulation, is very good in storytelling, is very versed in even in knowing the history of the community, which is an asset. And versus somebody who have the book knowledge, have gone to school, but are limited in so many other areas in terms of what the community stands for, the value systems of the community, and all of that. So if we see, for us, as a starting point, we see every parent as being equal, and that everybody, and by coming together, their weaknesses are actually, an individual weakness within the group is, as it were, made up. Like you can make up an individual weakness in the group by the strength of the other, and vice versa. What somebody may lack within the group, another person may have, and they complement one another in these discussion processes. So that is what I can say in respect of the question, so that we begin to move away from the notion that if you are educated, then you, quote unquote, you are more valued, you are more valuable, you have more to give to the group. If we still have this kind of notion, then you would facilitate or engender a process where the rest will only look up to the few who are educated, and that will not lead us anywhere. So basically, as an everyday activity, every parent is able to contribute something.
Thanks, Vidad. We have one more hand up. Lumo, if you want to ask your question very quickly, and then if very, very quickly, Portia and Vedat can respond to that. There's one other question that I want to pose to the larger group, and I see we're almost at time. So would also like to go to that question in a little bit, but over to you, Lumo, to ask your question.
All right, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. Network has been disturbing me in the last few minutes. I want to ask my my colleague, in your experience, how do you deal with parents who are resistant to learning? I once met a certain gentleman. I visited him at his home. So as I was talking to him, you know, the use of education, the guy was like, you know, my son, look here. You studied, right? Yes. I didn't study. How better are you from me? I'm richer than you. So what you are telling me, I don't see any sense in it. And he was frank like that. And he was like, we can have any other conversation, but anything around that, please, you can feel free to go. So with such parents, how do you deal with them? Thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, yes, in the work that we do, we come across parents who think that there's no value to education. And for me, it goes back to the point we've been making all along, that it's about the way we view education. We view education simply as a means to an end, right? Rather than an end in itself. Then we would confront parents with these difficult conversations, where parents would think that we only go through school, we are educated. I mean, we go through education just to be able to have, as it were, maybe meaningful jobs, right, at the end. So people see education as being linked to acquiring formal jobs and what have you. And that sort of creates that misconception about the value of education. But if we look at it as an everyday thing, as something, as a process that is supposed to make somebody functional, to make the right decision, to be analytical in their, and even that, the example the person you encountered gave, that yes, I'm rich, maybe the person may be able to make even very good decisions, very be effective in even his or her business, his business, if he was, as it were, educated in a sense. So basically, we are looking at education as a function of what happens to us in terms of how we are able to be analytical, to communicate well, to, as it were, be functional in whatever field that we choose for ourselves. Then we'll begin to look at the value of education differently. But we are seeing it as a means to acquire decent job, to be rich. Then it is not any ever educated person who is rich. I mean, it's not the most educated who are rich, but the most educated are those who are able to make the right decisions, who are able to as it were, nurture their children in ways that will help them make decisions around their health, around their welfare, around their even whatever other socio-economic activities. So if we look at it as a functional tool that makes us better as human beings, than linking it to wealth and riches, then we will be, we'll be in a position to, as it were, engage in convincing people who present themselves, or who confront us with these difficult but interesting conversations.
Thank you. Thanks, Vedat. But Portia, before I pass it on to you, I had just, because we're at time, I don't know how many people will be able to stay on, but if you are, I'm happy to continue this meeting for a couple of minutes more. But I just also wanted to open the poll on the side. So as Portia is also speaking, if you can take the poll. The poll has questions regarding feedback for this particular session, but there's one question that we have around what do we as a group want to think about, and what do we need as a community to continue to build parental support in literacy development. It can be training that we need, it can be uh, uh, research study that we want to undertake, it can be a tool we want to create, but we talked a lot about what's kind of like working and not working within our program, but I also want us to think a little bit more about what do we want to do as a community and what is the direction that we want to go in when we are thinking about parental confidence for literacy development. So I'm going to open the poll on the side. For people who are unable to stay on for long, please take that. And I'm going to pass it back to you, Portia, if you have any thoughts on the question that Romo
I
asked.
think it's very beautiful. And that's actually my point, The whole idea that education is actually something that would, and that's why the joyful learning aspect of learning is lost, because people think that the child should not play, the child must learn so that he gets good grades, go get a good job, then get more money, be a billionaire. And if it goes beyond that, then parents have to understand. The practical part of it I would like to add to is like constant engagement with the parents for them to realize that, okay, so you are richer than maybe the teacher or someone who has gone to school. If you go to the drugstore and you buy drugs, will you be able to read the inscriptions, the instructions on the label? If they say take 2 tablets a day, would you, if you had a child that could read and write, the child could help you. If you go to your farm and you buy chemicals to mix to spray, what happens? What happens if you interchange the chemicals? If you use too much or use too little? It's all those things to know that literacy actually makes our day-to-day life much better. And, in every way possible, you buy a new cylinder gas in your home, how to operate it, how to keep it safe. You buy a new flat TV in your home, you may have the money to buy, but actually how to operate it, and all that kind of thing. So engaging them and breaking it down for them to know that actually these are the benefits in these ways. It's not just the monetary part, but it's the everyday, reading the signs when you are in your car, your motorbike. What does the red means, the yellow, and stuff like that. And, visiting, if there's danger alert or something, and there's a signboard, what happens? So it makes your family life, the members, if your child has these literacy skills, basic, it makes it even more, more useful and more easy. So I would say constant engagement. Often when people have these strong ideas, it's not just at a go, it takes time. And when you start engaging, first of all, not in a place of judgment because they've had these ideas for long, but just sort of like trying to be in their shoes and understand and see, okay, so how can we, change this narrative? How can how can we collaborate to work together? So listening first of all, talking with them, and then just breaking it down bit by bit. And I think eventually it may help, maybe not 100%, but you would get there. We've had some parents in our workshop whereby there's always a kickback in the first week or 2 or 3, but eventually they themselves, they come back to the sessions and they sit and wonder what's happening. Then they come back and they actually like get the point. So it takes quite time. It takes time, but eventually, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Portia, for sharing that. We're a little over time. So I'd like to thank everyone for their participation and the discussions that we had throughout the last 90 minutes. I think it was an incredible discussion. And there are a lot of other things that I think we could have unpacked in this session, but we only had limited time. But we hope you're going to join us for the upcoming sessions as well. In the session that we're going to organize next, we're going to talk about community-led parenting models and peer-led support. And I'm sure, again, within that discussion, we're going to again talk about parental confidence and engaging fathers, particularly. We're going to talk about improving relationships with school. So while these are different themes, I'm sure all of these discussions are very overlapping. It was super nice to have all of you join us today and contribute to this discussion. I think I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody else did as well. If you can take the poll that I have launched, that would be incredibly useful for us to see and think about how we can make the remaining sessions more relevant and useful for you. But if you have taken the poll today, please feel free to drop off and have a great rest of the day. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.